Paul Bristow is the Conservative candidate for the mayoral election in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. Welcome to the conversation. Paul, this time round, we've got a few questions that aren't actually from me.
Oh, okay.
They're from other people. They're from people that well, you've heard some of them, I've heard some of them, lots of other people have heard some of them. But obviously when they're answered, only one person hears them at a time because they've come from people whose doors we knock on when we've been out canvassing, or if somebody's sent an email to the campaign or messaged us on Facebook or whatever it might be. These are sort of the questions that we're going to go through today are the ones that come up the most often.
Okay. All right. Brilliant. Let's do it.
Okay, fine. Now, first things first, to get this out of the way, are you related to Eric Bristow?
No, I'm not.
Do you know Eric Bristow?
I'm not the crafty Cockney. I'm only family from London. My family original from Yorkshire, North Yorkshire. It's only the Bristows, my mum and dad and me, who moved from North Yorkshire to Whittlesea when I was 5.
Okay, fine. No, it's good to
I am quite
get
good at the arrows, though.
You are. Oh, we'll
Yeah.
have to have a game one day to choose our pub wisely. But yes, why
Yeah,
not?
indeed.
Right. Okay. Now they're not all that fun, I'm afraid. Well, mind you, I suppose it depends on your perspective. They're quite fun in a way. So the first one that we're gonna go to is the well, I get they're all related in a way because basically the thing that comes up most commonly is how are we going to pay for everything?
Okay. Yeah.
When if you win this election, there are certain things that you said you're going to be doing, ranging from dualling the major A roads. We've talked about these in other episodes as well, that building the light railway. So yes, let's just address this, and we can address it from different perspectives, i.e., from the light rail perspective or from the
Yeah.
A road. So however we want to. But the big question is, where's the money coming from?
Sure. Well, look, I mean, I think one thing you can say about me is that I've got a vision. I know where I want to go. I think with lots of the other candidates, I couldn't tell you one single thing that they wish to do. I've got several things, but I think it's a very fair question. How am I going to pay for it all? Well, a lot of the commentary from the other candidates has been around, oh, he's not going to increase the mayor's tax or the mayoral precept, so how's he going to pay for everything? The mayoral precept brings in £11 million. 11 million. I mean, that's peanuts compared to some of the things that I want to do, like light rail or dual RA roads. So it's a false discussion. It's a false sort of argument around, oh, if you increase the mayoral precept by a few percent, then you can pay for everything. I mean, that's just nonsense. All we're doing really is just taking extra money from those who can least afford to pay it. So
Hmm.
so that's that. So let's just ignore that whole argument about the mayor's precept, okay? Because that's
We're
just
not raising the precept. Come
we're
what
not
may.
raising the precept, but to
Yeah.
equate the precept with any of the things I wish to do is just a totally infantile argument.
Yeah.
So let's just move that to one side. So look, let's look at. So there's other ways we can raise revenue. First and foremost, it's the thing that we can do is obviously match our priorities to those of the government. The government do want to invest in capital projects. We've just got to make sure that our capital projects are at the front of the queue, like that ED junction that's been talked about now for some
Mm.
time. Unfortunately, I think our mayor only got on the case towards the end, only lobbying in the final 3 months or something. I will be lobbying for that junction from day one because it makes huge economic sense. The gains you get from that junction um, completely are outweighed by the cost. On it's about 200 million, something like that, and it's a very relatively small amount of money compared to the actual cost, the benefit. And so that is something that everybody's lobbying for, and I'm confident is going to be in the spending route. So that's one thing. That's part of that. Some of
Mm.
the other things I want to do, which are not so obvious. Okay, so let's look at so there are other things we can do. First, we can borrow against our revenue spend. So the revenue budget. Sorry. So the mayor is given a certain amount of money, which is guaranteed by government for 35 years, and that money's there not to be spent on services because it's a relatively small amount. The mayor's decided to do things such as the Tiger Pass with some of it and some of that mayoral precept money. We can keep that, but what we can also do is we can borrow against that expected revenue. Okay, and that means we can then kickstart certain projects and then match it with other money to get things going. That's what's happened with the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. That's what happened with the airport on Tees Valley. They got the money to do these things by kick-starting the project by borrowing against its revenue, because it's guaranteed for 35 years. That's what we're going to do here in Cambridge and Peterborough. We can raise significant sums that way. If something like the light rail, for example, can be perhaps paid for through some sort of infrastructure levy, which paid for the Elizabeth line in London, and then you've also got a substantial private sector involvement as well. So there's many ways to skin a cat, okay, and to focus it all on the mayor's precept is a bit of a false narrative.
And of course, if these things that happen, like for example, the airport and the big infrastructure developments in any area brings more wealth to an area.
That's right.
Because of course, then there's more business, there's more business tax. Therefore, the more successful the area is as a whole, the more comfortable, if you like, everyone is in that area.
The only thing that holds us back is our own lack of ambition, okay? I want a mayoral authority and a mayor who says, yes, we can, rather than, oh, well, things are so difficult, or that might not be entirely in my remit. Let's focus on, this small amount of revenue spending. Let's think big, okay? The only thing that limits us is our own lack of ambition. We can do this.
Yeah.
I would never hear anyone like Andy Street or Andy Burnham, or even someone like Sadiq Khan or Boris Johnson when they were mayor of London, thinking in these very small terms. We're going to think big.
We are going to think big, and you're already thinking big. And I hope everyone's going to support your big thoughts, because it's much, much better to think big and then work out, right, if we want to get there, and work backwards, how are we going to make that happen?
Yes, that's right.
Right. Let's just break this up a little bit and go to a couple of questions that have come in on the email. Not all of them are as light as the first one, but there is one. Oh, sorry to have to ask you this, but I think it's come up a couple of times. So, what is your worst habit? I haven't noticed you have any habits during this campaign. Necessarily, maybe I haven't been looking.
Okay, well, look, I mean, I don't think I have any necessarily unpleasant personal habits.
Right. Okay. You keep a handkerchief in your pocket.
No. So, so I want to say the personal habits, but look, I'm late often for things, which is not great. I was late for this podcast, for example, and I don't think that's a necessarily an attractive trait, but I can quite often be late for things. I'm generally, when I used to run my own business, I made an absolute push to be as organised as I possibly can, because I'm actually a disorganised mess, really. So structure and organisation was key to everything that I did, because inherently I can be quite, sort of disorganised and late and generally a bit of a shambles. But with the right people around me and with a concerted effort for myself, we could knock those qualities off and sharpen me up a bit, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have said that about you, I have to say. In all honesty.
Could do.
You're probably maybe the bar's quite high. You're probably judging yourself quite high.
I think I could probably lose a bit of weight, have a haircut, okay, more than every sort of 6 weeks, and smart myself up a bit, sharpen me up a bit. I don't think that'd be a bad thing.
Okay, well, I'll remind you. I'll remind you of this at this point. Okay, and speaking of bad habits, someone's pointed out that this actually has only come up once rather than multiple times, but nevertheless, you mentioned in one of the videos that I think it was your This Is Your Life video, you mentioned that your father caught you smoking. Do you still smoke?
No. I have an occasional smoke.
Sounds like a loaded no.
The only thing I do is I perhaps smoke OPs, other people's, but I'm not a smoker really. But I occasionally have the occasional smoke after when I'm having a drink occasionally, but not very often, Harriet.
Not very often. Noted. Okay, very good. I don't smoke anymore. I used to smoke.
Yeah.
Can't remember when I stopped, but it seems
I used to love it, but I don't want to die of cancer.
Right. Okay. That's interesting, because when I stopped, I went completely off it and don't love it in any way. Now then, maybe back to something a bit more.
I don't vape. Okay. So one thing, lots of people, ex-smokers, They all vape. I've never vaped, and the reason is I
Um,
don't really smoke now. So I just knew if I started vaping, I probably would do it quite incessantly. So I've
someone
just resisted doing it.
someone told me the other day that it's harder to give up vaping than it was for them at least to give up smoking.
But it's a bit, smoking's sort of a bit dirtier, really, isn't it? And vaping, it's it's just pure nicotine, isn't it? So that's where you get the addictive side. I can see the
Got the
attraction of
crux of it.
vaping. I can see the attractiveness of vaping, but I just don't want to start because I just know I won't be able to stop, and it's not good. Look, I'm 46 years old, right? I'm not a young man anymore, so
Gotcha.
we don't want to be doing all that sort of
No more
nonsense.
habits, no more silly habits. Good. Um, right then. So back to this lobbying thing, for goodness sake. The lobbying point that you mentioned to make sure that the projects that we want to get funded are at the top of the list when government is looking at supporting them. How I don't know if it's possible for you to answer. How is it that you're going to be able to make that happen?
Yeah,
What if they're not listening, for example? I mean, we hope they will be because it's in the national interest, because Cambridgeshire itself is the net contributor to the treasury, and then everyone benefits. But yeah, from your point of view, let's just touch on that.
well, you've nailed it already, Harriet. Lobbying 101 is about ensuring you can show the government are going to meet their objectives by doing what you want them to do. And this government is talking about growth. I think they've done a very good job on growth. They're growing the unemployment register. They're not
Yeah.
growing the economy. But look, clear their ambition is there. And we need to demonstrate that the best way they can go for growth is to invest in Cambridgeshire. And they're already talking about Cambridgeshire, with the Camargue, and they're already talking about certain transport initiatives in Cambridgeshire. And of course, they want to build 100,000 homes or whatever it is in South Cambridgeshire. That's their plan for growth. If I can demonstrate that we can achieve growth, much more significant growth by dualling the A47, dualling the A10, doing that Ely junction, helping to invest in light rail, all these things that I wish to do. If we can demonstrate, we can unlock the potential of Peterborough and the Fens, and we can preserve um, the contribution that Cambridge makes, then I think the government will go for it. I mean, they want growth. And so,
Mm.
I can see it now that the Labour candidate was saying, oh, well, I know Rachel Reeves, I'll have her number and all the rest of it. It's all very well having Rachel Reeves' phone number, but you've got to know how to use the phone, right? I was an MP. I know how Westminster and Whitehall works. The Labour candidate works for an MP, right? I was an MP. I know how Westminster works. I know how Whitehall works. I can get it done.
Mm. That is good to know. That is good to know. And like you said before, these making sure that they understand your priorities are their priorities as well is such an important point. I'm going to link one together now because it comes to, and we have talked about, again, we talked about this in another episode, but because it comes with this other bit, I'll do it again. Free parking
Yes.
is a serious point, and well, and this is serious as well, actually. Your views on hospital parking charges. So I feel like they come slightly together because they're both about parking and people having to pay for
Yeah.
parking.
No. If I had my time again as an MP, I think one thing I would really want to look at would be hospital car parking charges as like a national campaign.
Yeah.
It was one thing that I used to grind my gears, and it was one thing I was always intending to do, which you never get around to doing, which is, that's just life, isn't it? But if I had my time again, I would run a national campaign on that, because I think it's absolutely appalling that when you're at your lowest ebb, you're ill, you're going to the hospital for some sort of emergency or whatever, or you're being visited. Your hospital visit, seeing a loved one. I think it's appalling. One has to pay. Now there are many ways to skin a cat. We're not just saying that people should be there to park all day for free, and people park there and then walk into town or whatever. But what we really need is a situation where hospitals. I mean, I would love to do it, and if I had my time again as an MP, I would run a national campaign on it. But look, that's not in my control as mayor, unfortunately. But it's something I'd be really interested in. Free parking in Peterborough City Centre, St Neots Town Centre, and other places. They're things I can do, because I think free parking has been seen to work somewhere like Ely, which has got a thriving city centre. Always could do better, but comparatively it's thriving. They've got a great market, and it shows you that parking is a key draw factor for people to go into the city centre. We can do that in Peterborough. We can do that in St Neots, and I will use that revenue budget that we've talked about. That money, that small amount of the money that they do have to spend on revenue. I will spend that money on subsidising what the council will lose through revenue. That's Huntingdonshire District Council and Peterborough City Council. I will use that money to fund free parking. Now I'll have to sit down, negotiate with the councils what that looks like, whether that's a big chunk of free parking in the day, whether that's free after 3, but there'll be some sort of scheme of free parking that's simple, that's easy to follow, and that will draw people into our centres. There's the 3 things that we need. I don't want it's free every third Thursday or for 2 hours after. None of this rubbish. It's got to be a simple plan for free parking in Peterborough and in St Neots.
And that's so key, isn't it? Because the whole point of making something easier is so that people can go about their daily life with more ease. Having to fiddle around, how do we pay for it? If that, some people don't carry change anymore, some people don't have an app still. There are too many variations, and that's a key point actually of conservatism, to create conditions to make things easier for people, to make the how they run their lives less interfered with.
It's not the public sector that grows the economy, okay? It's not, it won't be me who grows the economy. Public sector provide public services, okay? But what we can do is create the environment by which businesses can flourish. And something like free parking is one of those things. We can create an environment where people want to stay in our city centre, go to a restaurant, have a drink, do those things that are unrushed and grow our economy.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, back to these questions. What was I going to ask next? Oh, yes. Someone's clocked while you were doing your roast dinner campaign that you left your Arga lids up. This, of course, makes me wince. It obviously made someone else wince as well. Why'd you leave the lids up?
Because I was a fool. And I was using it to heat the kitchen, necessarily a very expensive way to heat the kitchen, but I was using it. But no, you've got to put them down. Do you know something? That was only the 3rd time I've ever used that Arga. And
okay, right, you're off the hook then.
It goes in our house in Wansford. It's a new home, our new house, and we've not been here very long, and I don't cook on it very often. And cocked up a bit there, didn't I?
Yeah, well, you live and learn. Next time, put the lid down.
Yeah.
My mother would have something to say about that too. What else now? Oh, yes. Someone has actually asked why you're not standing for council as well as for mayor. That's an interesting one.
Because I don't want to be councillor. I want to be the mayor. And if you look at every other candidate standing for mayor, they're either standing for council on the same day, hedging their bets, or they're already a sitting councillor. The Labour candidate's a sitting Cambridge city councillor. What job do they want to do? Do they want to be a mayor or do they want to be a councillor? I only want to be mayor. This job is bigger than being a councillor. This job is bigger than being an MP in many ways. You have to immediately have executive authority. This is a massive, big job. That's why we have really big characters like Andy Burnham, doing it in Manchester. You had Andy Street, the former CEO of John Lewis, doing it in Birmingham. You've had Sadiq Khan obviously doing it in London before that, Boris Johnson. It's a big job, right? Okay, it's not time for, councillors work very hard, I'm sure, and it's a very decent thing to do. But it's bigger than being a councillor. It's bigger than being an MP. We need a big character to do that job. And I think I can do this. And the other thing to remember, of course, is if any of the other candidates are successfully elected as mayor and elected as a councillor, in the case of the Labour candidate, she already is a councillor, they'll have to resign. You can't be a councillor and the mayor. That just doesn't work. They'd have to resign.
Well, it's illegal, in fact.
It's illegal, that's right.
But by the Electoral Commission.
That's right. So they'd have to resign, costing tens of thousands in a by-election. I mean, what's that all about? Which job do you want to do?
Yeah, it is a bit cynical how some of them, or well, all of them are hedging their bets. It's almost as though they would, being a councillor is second best to them.
Yeah,
and they're trying to try their luck at being mayor, which I think is a little bit of it shows a little bit of disdain for the county council as well, actually,
Yeah, it's
because
just
that
disrespect.
yeah, it's okay. So that's why you're not also running for the county council. That makes sense. Now, do you iron your own shirts?
Well, considering my wife refuses to iron, it's either myself. Sometimes my mum does offer to do it, and I let my mum do it. At 46, I'm still letting my mum do it. But it's it's predominantly it's me doing it, unfortunately, because my wife refuses.
Okay, are you good at it?
Well, I ironed this shirt this morning. I don't think that's too bad.
Yeah, well, it looks good on from where I am. Yeah, can't see any creases.
Yeah.
Um, diddle-diddling. Whittlesea. Can you get a southern relief road for Whittlesea and our villages? That sounds
Yeah, I'd love to do that. My dad was a councillor in Whittlesea for years and years and years. Well, town councillor for years, and he was a district councillor for a couple of years before he died. And that was his big thing. That Southern Relief Road, was something that he always wanted to do. The only reason I've not made it a feature in this campaign, and I might do, I think there's nothing wrong with talking about a bit of ambition, is precisely because of the reasons. The question you said earlier, how are you going to pay for all these things? I know how I'm going to deliver the A10. It's already part of. Um, there's already a business case, £2 million spent on a business case, which is sitting on the mayor's desk. He's done nothing, and even the county council say the work should be completed by 2031. So we just need to push that on and get that going. Got a plan for the A47. There's lots of work we can do. It requires lots of flood management work anyway. It's part of RICS 3, which is the government's roads improvement strategy. So there's an opportunity there. So I've got a plan for all these other things, and the A141 as well. So I've got a plan for these other things. For the relief road for Whittlesea, I don't know where it is. It would have to be a brand new project that we'd have to bring together. I'm up for it. I'm up for it. But I need to be clear about how we're going to get the cash
mm,
to pay for it.
and that's it's fair for you to say that, I think, because like you say, you've got the ambition, you've got the vision, and as things get done, more things will come up
Yeah.
through the ranks and become part of the plan and part of the vision. But
I
uh,
did know something, Harry. I think my dad would haunt me. Okay, if I didn't, kind of put Whittlesea at the forefront of a lot of the things I want to do because he loved the town. I grew up there. So look, if I can do it, I will.
mm,
Because I know more people. I know more than most the challenges with the A605. The traffic going through Whittlesea down Inham's Road quite often into on residential streets, big sort of trucks and things. Look, I know the challenge of Whittlesea. I grew up there, and if I can do it, I will.
okay. I've got two more from this list, and then another couple that I just want to combine. Um, do you read to your children
Every night.
every night?
So it's
What
either
are we on at the
myself or
moment?
either myself or my wife will read to my children every night because I love
Excellent.
my babies, and they love reading. And I didn't have children so they could be taken care of by somebody else. So either myself or Sarah will read to our children every night.
What are you reading now?
So my eldest daughter has just finished all the Secret Seven books. We're rereading a rewrite of The Magic Faraway Tree. We've also started reading lots of David Walliams books, and she's reading. She's which we finished. And I'll tell you what the one she's reading right now. It's a kid's version of Pride and Prejudice. Okay, so that's what we're reading with her. Eris, the younger girl, we just start reading Isadora Moon with her. Okay, so we do a chapter or two of that a night. But sometimes she likes, reading things which she can do in one go, like Mr. Men books and things like that.
Oh yeah,
She's started to read as well now, which is good. Good little reader herself.
good. That's fun to know. And now I'm just looking at a couple of other things and wondering where to go. Okay, this is topical because it's been in the press this week. What do you think about the Supreme Court ruling on biological sex?
Well, I think it's a common sense ruling. I think it's a vindication of what women like J.K. Rowling, what other campaigners been doing. Kemi herself, actually, she was front and foremost on this during her time in government when she was Equalities Minister. So look, it's a victory for common sense. Women, um, they need their safe spaces. Okay, then a woman's safe space is something which has been hard fought for by women, women's specific rights. We don't want, biology. Of course, we need to be respectful. We need to be show empathy, understanding, love to those people who have gender dysphoria or are going through a difficult time. But you can't change biological fact, and a woman is a woman.
Important to recognize that. Quite agree. Now then, I think this is the one we might well finish on, because we've been going for quite a while now. It's again, it's kind of combined. So this is it was about the project that you're planning, the new community stadium in
Yeah,
Peterborough, with a question from someone who clocked that you went to the cup final.
right.
Um, their question is, are you a Peterborough fan or a York fan?
Well, look,
Be
I'm gonna.
honest.
Look, I think I'm gonna be unashamed to say I'm a bit of both. So look, I support both teams. I always have all my life. It became a bit challenging when I was back in the day when they were both in the same league. I'm trying to think, when did I go and watch? So I went to watch York versus Peterborough at York at Booth and Crescent, and I went to watch Peterborough versus York at London Road. And what year was that? Was that 95 or 96? I remember those games. But look, typically it's not been a problem because York have been, so poor and in the National League, and Posh have been riding high in the Championship or League One. It's never really been a problem. But York, it's a condition I inherited. My grandfather supported York, my dad supported York. I had to support York, because obviously that's where I was born. But for Posh, I had a season ticket for Peterborough United throughout my youth. Went every week with my dad, then with my mates
So
when
he
he
was
stopped.
a dual fan
Sorry?
as well. He was a dual fan as
Oh
well.
yeah, yeah,
He
absolutely. And I
enjoyed
know, and
it.
he's and Liverpool as well. He sports,
Oh,
and so I went every week with my dad, and I used to go every week with my friends as well. I used to went to a lot of away games, following Posh with my mates when I was younger. So yeah, I'm proud and posh. I'm sorry
okay.
for any Cambridge United fans listening.
Uh, yeah, that's me. That's me.
Uh,
Yeah. Um, so and so let's just go on to that. How you would get that new community stadium off the ground in Peterborough, in the ground,
yeah.
off the ground, in the ground, built.
So look, I'm going to see Peter United this week, well next week, and we're going to talk and we've got a plan. But look, Peter United have got to be up for it, which I think they are. We've been talking about it for years and years and years. But why would they spend potentially six figures to begin with on a planning application, seven figures, sorry, on a planning application, when when the city council aren't behind them and the city
Mm.
council are umming and ahhing and not 100% committed and kind of worried about the impact that a new city centre stadium might be unpopular amongst certain people, which I get, I understand. City centre stadiums aren't universally popular. But for me, I think Peterborough United in the centre of Peterborough delivers huge benefits for our city centre. The ground is getting old, it's tired, right? And there's a real opportunity to build a new community stadium, which won't just be about football. This can be we can have a swimming pool in there, we can have a concert venue in there. We're only 45 minutes from London. If we want big headline acts coming to the centre of Peterborough, we can build that stadium in Peterborough. What Peterborough United need, is the certainty that a mayor is behind the scheme, that will see it through with his own planning role, part of his spatial development strategy. We'll push it through. We'll guarantee that if it's the right scheme, it will get permission. We could put some public money into it for the swimming pool. So look, I'm behind it. I've already got a team working on a concept. Okay, so when I go to Peterborough United, we've got concepts from what I want to see. So Peterborough United are obviously behind it. I'm seeing them next week. But what I want to see the stadium deliver as well, I got my own team already right now, before I'm there, working on the plan. Okay, and we can combine what Posh want to do, what I want to do. We can push this through because this has been far too many prevaricating, far too many people kind of scratching their chins, far too many people at the city council and ahhing. Let's get it done and let's get a city centre stadium for Posh and all that sort of benefit that comes from it.
Mm. Brilliant. It sounds good. It sounds incredibly productive. Paul, thank you so much for answering all of the questions. Some of them after several times of answering them, I'm sure. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Harriet. Take care.
You can visit www.paulbristow.org.uk to get in touch, to stay in touch, and to help Paul to get Cambridgeshire moving.